This video is going to show you solo GM getting platinum rating for the Scarlet Keep. This is the final weekly feature GM that's up for the Conqueror to gild your Conquerors, but I guess most of you have already done that because you had the selector node, what have you. But regardless, I'm still going to upload this as of reset because it's the final week and it'll help watch time and stuff like that. So at the very start, you can do a mini exploit and skip the first barrier champion and the first wizard. I recommend that you do this. You may as well, and you will still get platinum rating. This is 100% confirmed. I have been doing this a while now, so you may as well skip the first barrier. Even if you don't climb over the walls, you can still skip him if you really want to. So you will definitely get platinum rating. This is a mechanic that's been in the game ages. The platinum rating skips. For nearly all GMs have one. Not every one of them, but almost all of them have mechanics where you can skip a champ because you stop them from spawning in, or you've done something to make them despawn, like Lightblade. There's loads of different instances of that. And Scarlet Keep is no stranger. Just think of it like this. You've got 1-3 ticket to not kill a champ and still get platinum rating. Which one do you choose? Well, there's no point in skipping any others because they're all in front of us. So you're going to skip that first one because he's the easiest to skip, so you may as well. Or just kill him. I'm not fussed. I'm just here to tell you that you can. So, this build is done with a Stasis Shadebinder Warlock with double turrets from the exotic gloves and the exotic bow Verglas curve, which does have catalyst. Now, if you're going to run this exotic bow in any GM, I suppose, you need the catalyst. I think without the catalyst it suffers a little bit, so you want it because it decreases draw time when you're up against frozen targets, and that's nice. There's a lot to be said for that. If a weapon can put out good damage and reload quick, it's going to automatically be decent in PvE, and this weapon is decent in PvE, and it's a ton of fun to use, but only really on Stasis builds. This will work well on a Stasis Behemoth or even a Revenant, any Stasis class. But it does work well with the turrets because when you're up against frozen targets, you get that quick draw time, and the turrets are just good for dealing with barriers, and there's a lot of them. So it really helps out the bow, and there's a couple of fragments that help the bow out as well on Stasis. So if you're going to run the bow, you need to be on Stasis, really. It's no Wish Ender, but I don't want this video to be about Wish Ender versus Curve, because we know the winner, but it's not the Stasis bow's fault that is the case. That's just the sandbox that we're in, and I believe Bungie does know how strong Wish Ender is. Of course they know how strong it is, but I think they're leaving it in the game as an option for solo players to at least have a chance at solo and GMs. I'm on about the lower end of skill for players. They're leaving it in the game on purpose so that it's an option, and that's how it is. But what they don't realise is the skilled players are also going to use the Wish Ender because they can get their runs faster. They can get their clear done quicker. So when you're making content, right, the longer your video is, the harder it is to get somebody to even watch your damn video, never mind anything else. So if you can get, a solo GM done in 28 minutes, 30 minutes, you're gonna find that the viewer's gonna watch all of that run because they've got half an hour spare, but they haven't got 55 minutes spare. They're on the break at work. Do you get what I'm saying? This run is far longer because I'm putting myself handicapped by using the wrong weapons. I've got the wrong bow on, I've got the wrong fusion on, and I've got the wrong machine gun on as well. Technically speaking, via the meta, it's all the wrong weapons. But that doesn't mean to say that you can't use these types of weapons in GMs, and it gives you a unique perspective and hopefully a better watch time for me, because you're watching something that you might not have seen before or not seen that much of. So yeah, the bow is like giving you a Wish Ender playstyle, but you can't break the shield, barrier shield in one go, even with debuff. With a debuff you can two-shot the shield, which is nice, but intrinsically I think the bow should be doing more damage to champions, and it's not. You'll see when sometimes it doesn't, but obviously that's why the turrets are on. So sometimes with the turrets you won't need to break a shield anyways. What you need to understand though is when you're doing the turret build, right, yeah, people know how to piece it together. Pretty easy to do that in Orbit. You've seen the fragments, you've seen everything that I've got on, but you need to understand how your turret works. And what I mean by this is that the turret works on slow stacks. Each time it hits an enemy, it's hitting slow stacks on that enemy. When the slow stacks cap out to max, the enemy is frozen. The barrier cannot put up their shield then. Whisper of Durance will help out with this because it will make the turret last longer than usual. So you need that one on. So you need all your mods and your fragments spec'd out to get your turret coming back quite frequently, like Whisper of Torment, shards, stuff like that. But what you need to understand is, if you're trying to just kill a barrier with your turret and your weapons, that will only work when you have no enemies alive, only the barrier, because the AI of the turret will just want to freeze all enemies, which means the slow stacks are spread out against enemies. Whereas if the turret only focuses on a barrier, the barrier will always be frozen because of the slow stacks. Will be higher because there's no enemies surrounding the barrier. But chances are, by the time you've done a turret, you should have it back anyways. I've got improved ability regen via stasis crystals, so that's where Verglas curve comes in. So it's got a perk called Heal Barrage. So for every kill, you get a headstone arrow. Think of it like that. That stacks at 5. But see, you've only got one stack. What you can do is either direct it to the enemy or direct it close to you for cover, and then melee the stasis crystal, right, for the improved ability regen. And if you've got Whisper of Chains on, you can get a damage resistance up at all times, basically. Which I didn't go with Whisper of Chains for one reason, because I couldn't fit it in and I wanted Whisper of Rendon on instead. Whisper of Rendon provides a damage bonus to weapons that use primary ammo, not kinetic weapons. It can be kinetic or strand or stasis, whatever. So it's just a weapon that uses primary. It gives you a damage bonus against frozen targets. Because I wanted to see how much damage I could cap out with the bow, really. But for lesser skilled players, you may want to use Whisper of Chains instead. Which that means you're just going to get a damage resistance up all the time and just keep popping your stasis crystal bows next to you while you're firing the bow from range. It's actually a foolproof strategy to do that. I didn't do that because I didn't feel like I needed the damage resistance. I've already got tier 10 Reveal, I've got double arc, concussive dampener on. I don't need anything. But, as I said, that's something that you can do, and it's actually quite nice. So for the bridge encounter, you want to place down a turret, of course, and try and take out all the thrall, as many as you can. The knights as well are quite important. So you're going to break out the machine gun. So the machine gun that we're using is called Chain of Command. It's a stasis machine gun. I'm using that for one only reason. That it's got Demolitionist on, which works well with the turret build. But also because it's stasis and it works with monochromatic maestro. Right? Which you can keep proccing the maestro buff with your turret. So the machine gun works well. And it's a ritual weapon from a couple of seasons ago. It's actually a really good weapon. It's not bad. But is it the best in slot machine gun for this? Absolutely not. I could see a fixed odds doing far better in this. A 7 Seraph Saw. Especially with a damage buff. I've got no damage buff on this Chain of Command. It's got no damage buff. Apart from Adrenaline Junkie, I suppose it's got that. But Adrenaline Junkie, I mean, it's not that good, is it? I would prefer Vorpal over this. You know, rather than Adrenaline Junkie. Because you've got to do something to proc the perk. Right? Vorpal just works. It's a less buff. It's 10%. Right? Or even a Frenzy machine gun. So there's all sorts of things that you could do. the Deepstone Crypt machine gun. So there's loads of different machine guns. Retrofit Escapade, the one I always use. But yeah, the machine gun worked well with this build, but it wouldn't work that well with other builds that don't match. I've only done it so it matches an element type. The fusion rifle is Royal Executioner, which I'll talk about more as we go on, but the perks are Envious Assassin and Reservoir Burst. This is also a really good fusion, but it's not best in slot. And there's a couple of reasons why it's not best in slot. I'm only running it because a couple of people have kept going on at me over the last month or so to use it. So alright, I've listened to them, I've used it, and my reactions to the fusion are exactly what I thought. Not as good as what I usually use, which would be Cartesian Coordinate or the Emerite. If I need a solar fusion in a GM, it's Cartesian Coordinate all day in a GM. In a dungeon, then it's Emerite. But this Royal Executioner isn't cutting it compared to those. Although it is good. It's actually really good. The fact that you don't even need to reload. Right, Envious Assassin got a buff. So it's 15 bullets. And I don't even need to reload. That's really good. But what's not that good about it is Reservoir Burst. And I've never really liked this perk because it used to be good in the old meta, right? But not now. Like, there's so many better perks. Control Burst is far better than this perk. And the argument was that, alright, well, if you use Reservoir Burst with Envious Assassin, it works on your top half of your mag. So, now you haven't just got one shot at Reservoir, you've got all the entire mag that's overflowed as Reservoir. Yeah, that's fine, but it still doesn't matter. It's still not better than a Vorpal. Vorpal's 15%. On a Cartesian Coordinate, and that's for every single shot. Reservoir's what, 25 for only half of the mag? Do you not understand how that's less total damage overall? Do you not see that? It's far less total damage. So overall, the use out of this fusion is good to use it sort of like a shot sparingly here and there, but when you start to spam your ammo, the power of the gun goes down, and then that's where you should have just had on Cartesian Coordinate or the Emerite, which would have been a far better fusion than this one. And that's just an objective outlook on it. People try to sugarcoat weapons because they like them. They like the feel of them. They like how they shade. I don't look at that stuff. I tell you objectively, not opinion based. It's factual. I don't sugarcoat any gun. The only gun I sugarcoat is Outbreak Perfected. Best exotic prime that we have. Even though it isn't, it is to me, if you know what I mean. But I don't sugarcoat these guns. I know that this gun just is not as good as the other fusions I've mentioned. And that's important to players who aren't that good when they need the most out of their weapons as much as possible. So that's why I'm honest with people. I'll say, look, no, that's not right. The damage bonus might be a higher number, but the perk uptime is lower. That's what you need to start looking at with your guns. Perk uptime, not the damage number. You consider the damage number, always. But you also consider how often is this perk working. How often is it working? Oh, it's only working 50% of the time. Vorpal works 100% of the time on anything other than a red bar. Alright, well then the Vorpal's obviously going to be better. But people can't seem to see that. They don't look at it like that. They look at it as, well, it's a new gun. Well, it's not that new, this fusion. It's a new gun, I like using it, it's themed to the season, whatever. You know, they like the lore. I'm not into all that stuff. Functional gameplay. That's what you need to look into. What is actually good. Now, if you're a higher skilled player, then you need to stop using the best stuff. Because you'll hit a ceiling. You will never get better. You'll end up hitting a ceiling and you'll never really improve. You'll only ever stay around that area. There's ways and means to get better at the game other than just playing the meta. And there's a lot to be said for that. If you can do something with a worse loadout, then it stands to reason that you can obviously do something with anything at that point. At that point, you've truly mastered all the weapon types in the game and all the different types of rules. It's not just about, well, I'm just going to use this gun because I want to. it's a bad outlook to have, and I've tried to change people, and I have to some people, because I have had comments off a lot of people over the years say, oh, you changed my outlook with the game there. Like Grand Overture. Look at that. Everyone said, oh, you're using Grand Overture for... Before he was buffed, bear in mind. Before he was buffed. I was saying, oh yeah, it's good this. It's got good ammo. It's got good ammo uptime. And it's just a very good ammo economy heavy weapon. Oh, we don't believe you. It's not that good. And then they buff it. And they say, all right, this gun is good. How do you use it? Oh, well, I already knew how to use it, right? Because I made a video about it 6 months ago. Do you see how it works? So you need to know about all these guns that aren't that good. Like this bow here. It is actually really good. Before this week, I thought it was rubbish. I was aware of it getting buffed. I just hadn't got round to using it. And I hadn't got round to getting the catalyst because I didn't care enough about it. Because I generally don't care about Stasis or Strand primaries, if I'm being honest, unless it's like Quicksilver Storm. I really don't care about these weapons because they do 10% less than a kinetic weapon intrinsically. So they're intrinsically always going to be worse. They're always going to be worse in terms of damage, but certain exotics have that utility, like Quicksilver Storm has really good utility for Strand, Tangles. This weapon's very similar. Like, if you're going to run Stasis, run this bow. Especially whilst Barrier Bow is up. It's very good. We're going to put down a Stasis turret here because we want to skip. This is really wasting our time. There's no champ here, but we will melt with a fusion. It's to note as well, keep an eye on your ammo and your heavy drops and your special drops. So I used some fusion there. But I had the license to use that much heavy on that special on that wizard to then go and pick up that brick again. So then I'm almost full again. So it's just been ammo economy safe. You don't want to be going to the next encounter with 50% ammo in both heavy and special, because then you're setting yourself up to play worse later on. Because if you don't get the ammo drops that you need, which you should be if I'm being honest, because they buffed ammo, the ammo economy is far better than what it used to be. But if you don't for that particular moment, then you're stuck with just the bow. But the bow will do a lot for you. It'll two-shot red bars, which is really good. It'll, you know, it'll chip away at barriers like this. Like, it's doing decent damage here. The only thing it's not doing really well is the barrier. Like, its 3 shots is quite... That's, you don't understand how weak that is compared to like Wish. And if it was 2 shots with no debuff, just base 2 shots, then right, we're on to something. This is usable. This is good. I'm going to use it. Its strength, I suppose, is that it is a bow. So at that very least, it is a bow. So you can kind of play with this bow like you would with Wish Ender. You can sort of do that playstyle. I'm on about against red bars and stuff. You can emulate that playstyle, but it is going to be 50% longer to do it. Because think about it, if you're 2-shot red bars, Wish Ender 1-shots, so you're going to be 50% faster, right? With just using the Wish Ender. But as I said, that's more of a Wish Ender problem, I think, rather than this bow's problem. Everything about this bow is really good, just that its barrier capability isn't very good. But the turrets supplement that, and that's why I've went with the turret build. So it's important for the plate section that you melt down the wizard first, because the wizard will be a problem to you. This is where your super will come in. So your Stasis Shadebinder isn't really good for barriers, so don't count on using it on those. You can just about kill a barrier if you do a bit of chip damage, but it's going to be tight. To be honest with you, you want to use your super on wizards. There's 3 of them and they're ultras and they're quite tanky. So using a Wish Ender to kill a wizard is almost certainly worth it. Because that's the job of Shadebinder. It's not to clear ads, although that is its backup option. If I need it and I'm going to wipe, then I will pop a super, yes. But its primary goal is to melt solo wizards. That's the goal of the super. Its damage is going to be poor against bosses, because it just is. Stasis needs a buff, the supers need a buff, all 3 of them need a buff. You'll be surprised, but the highest damage one out of them all is Behemoth. I bet you didn't think that, but it is. If you don't believe me, have a look at the guy who soloed Lightblade with Behemoth. That'll tell you there just how good Behemoth super is. A lot of utility, it can put out the damage. Whereas the Warlock one is probably the worst, because it's a Roman super, but it has really no benefit. The Revenant one's useful, because you can pop it from a range, but that doesn't really matter, because it doesn't do that much damage anyways. It'll just assist you taking down a barrier, and you would want to pop... You would want to pop it on a barrier, and it would help you out, but it's still not that good either, if I'm being completely honest. That's why people use like Strand and stuff instead. Which Stasis is getting a buff, but that's not going to be for a bit. And they're going to make new fragments and stuff like that. But as of today, right now in the game, there is not much use to use Stasis. Because Stasis is all about control, right? It's all about facing an enemy that's more powerful than you. I hip fired there by accident, that's why I lost the shield. But it's all about facing an enemy or an encounter that you cannot do otherwise without Stasis. And there was a time in the game where if you don't run Stasis, you may die. And that moment was Glassware GM. When that first came out, there was people and there was teams that could not do it over and over. I remember my first 3 Glasswares, and I wiped in all 3 of them with a fire team. And those people will remember that. Reason being is because we didn't have a clue what to do. I was popping a well, and you just die in a well. Anyone remember that? It wasn't that long ago. Wells were useless in GMs. You couldn't use them. Whereas now, they're like best in slot. But then, it was like you just die in a well straight away. Straight away, because the well provided a overshield. But you got... it worked differently, the wells. Right? So, Warlock mains were going Shadebinder in Glassware to survive at the boss. Because you couldn't do it any other way, really, with a Warlock. You wanted a Nightstalker on, obviously for the Invis, Shadebinder, and then probably another Shadebinder. The Titan wasn't of much use back then in the game. This is before Void 3.0, before Strand. Titan is now very, very useful in the game, but back then it was the worst class by a million miles. It was really bad. But that's what I'm saying. We needed control of the enemy. Stasis is the best class to control enemies, but you don't need to control them. Why bother controlling them when you can instantly kill them with an Arc Hunter? Why bother controlling them if you can get infinite restoration with a Solar Titan and just kill them fast anyways, right? The best defense is an offense. So why run a defensive... why do it? Well, for me, I'm doing it so that I can get some views on YouTube. That's what I'm doing it for. But some random guy out there, why does he need to run Stasis? You'll see on people's newsletters, when you get the seasonal newsletter on your emails, it tells you your subclass usage. A lot of people are like 2 and 3% on Stasis. There's a reason for that, because the light 3.0 subclasses, and Strand as well, deal with everything quicker. They put out far more damage, and you don't need to control the enemy because the enemy's already dead. That doesn't mean to say, oh, let's buff enemies again. That's not the answer either. No, the answer is buff Stasis like they're gonna. All 3 supers need a huge buff, right? Especially the Walk and the Hunter. The ability usage, like throwing nades though on Stasis, on all 3 classes is very good. The Glacier Grenade, very good on a Titan. On Warlock, the turret build, very good. On Hunter, the build is back for the Duskfield build. Very good. It doesn't even need a buff. It's fantastic how he is. All they need to do is just give it some new fragments, buff the super damage, because sometimes they say, oh, if you just put a bigger number on it, isn't always the answer. Well, sometimes it just is, though. You think about it, when you're playing moment to moment, if you're using something that's putting out good damage, you feel good about it. Chances are you're going to use it again. If you use a class where it's like, oh, this isn't even doing much damage, chances are you take the class off and don't use it again until they buff it. Just give it a higher number. That's all you need to do with it. Because the way Stasis looks and feels is satisfying. When you pop a Stasis super, it's satisfying. It's good. They don't need to do anything with that. Just need more damage to combatants. Go back to what it was like when it first came out. Because in PvE, Shadebinder used to melt. Revenant especially as well with the Tornado. Absolutely used to melt. They just need to go back to, maybe not as strong as that, but close to. Just fine tune it. That's all they need to do. when you push up so far, obviously you'll get the solar wizards, so don't push up until you're ready for them. If you're gonna kill a solar wizard with a super, that's fine, but if you haven't got one, then sit back with your turret, let them freeze, and then break out the fusion. If you want, manage your ammo, pay attention to the green bricks you're getting, pay attention to the purple bricks, but your goal in that room is to do it comfortably and leave with a lot of ammo left. So a max special, nearly max heavy, that's good. Like if I was leaving that room with 0 heavy, then I've done that encounter wrong. I might have got past it, but what about the rest of the GM? There's still a long way to go, you know. So you've got to know when to use heavy and then when to step off. This isn't a heavyweight strike. I see people when they're playing, especially if they haven't got an exotic primary on, they'll spam their heavy because they're trying to kill an enemy with a legendary primary and it's not going well. So then they break out the heavy, and then next thing you know, they've got no heavy left. That's not the correct way to play. Not that that's their fault that legendary primaries don't do the damage. They don't. Only hand cannons do. Every single legendary primary in GMs is weak apart from bows. Legendary bows are strong enough, but they're still kind of awkward to use compared to an exotic one, because the exotic one does far more damage. Like in a legendary scout, they don't do enough damage. That is the trouble with them. But as I said, hand cannons do. So if you wanted to run hand cannon and arbalist, that would be actually a decent loadout in this, because you've got arbalist for the shields, hand cannon for all your ag clear and stuff. Although it wouldn't be that good at range if you're playing really, really far back. You know, it'd be good on like something like Strand or something. So the turret failed there. Right, now why did the turret fail? It's all to do with timing on the barrier. So there's actually nothing we could have done there. I could have just used the bow instead of the fusion. I was just wanting to melt down the barrier quickly, but it failed on me. That's what I'm saying. Even with the best odds, sometimes the turret can fail on you. Sometimes just the barrier beats the timing of the turret. That just sometimes happens. The easiest way is just to have the bow, just to bow them down as they're getting peppered by the turret. That's the easiest way of doing it. And try and stand far away as well. You'll get the rapid fire ranger debuff, sorry, and you'll get a surge as well. The playstyle with the bow as well, there's different ways of doing it. So you can do the hill barrage. Even if you've got one stack, that's enough. Use the one stack on a Thrall, kill the frozen target. Because of Ice Flare bolts, it will then track to the next enemy. You'll get hill barrage back, and then there's this loop of chain killing that you can do with the bow. It's very satisfying. Or you can use it for the improved ability regen, like I've been doing, where I use it and then I get my improved ability regen, which sometimes you can do that when you're maybe lacking on grenade energy or whatever. Or just hit that towards the enemy. As long as you shoot the crystal, you'll get the buff. So this barrier here likes to back off once most of the acolytes are killed. I recommend you let the barrier do that. You're in danger of not killing the barrier. Like say he's half HP or less, he retreats behind that corner. There's nothing you can do. Let the barrier do what the barrier wants to do. Just let it happen. I'm going to get a turret down in middle. The snipers are of concern right now. You should not be doing anything. You shouldn't be thinking about the barrier, the shrieker, nothing. Only the snipers. See what I mean? So 2 snipers would definitely kill you. 2 shots, which is it's easy done. So make sure you prioritize the snipers. The shrieker is opened up for some odd reason. I guess that might be something to do with the stasis crystal there. I would assume so, because the shrieker should not have opened up. That is very strange. The next goal is the barrier. The one in middle. I'm just paying attention to my left, because there is still snipers alive, even though it doesn't look like it. Because they're threatened by you at this stage, because you've killed most of the acolytes. They'll only peek shoot you sometimes. So sometimes when you're dealing with the barrier, they will peek snipe you, which can be a risk if that happens. You could be not suspecting it, so make sure that you sort of near cover, because if you get sniped you can immediately right or left to cover so that you don't die. Champion is debuffed, plus turrets doing a good job here. That's really nice. Obviously we've got our stasis boost as well, which is working well. See how that barrier wants to engage us, but as soon as you deal damage he goes around the corner. That's why you wouldn't deal with the barrier on the ramp until there. Get a stasis turret down in middle. We want to freeze the Shrieker. This is an actual really good strategy. This Shrieker is a nightmare to deal with generally, but because of this it makes it easy. Like if I was on Arc Warlock I would use my Curse Reach or whatever, but because we can freeze the Shrieker, we can use this piece of cover and then just deal with it like that. I recommend pushing up from here, because chances are by the time you get that barrier weak he's going to want to back up slowly up this ramp. So the barriers are more confident to push you at full HP. That is their AI pattern. You should know this by now. This is a basic thing. Well, it's a basic thing to me, but I think it's not a basic thing to some people. It's based on their HP. Their AI pattern has two factors from what I can see. Well, three factors. Number one, the environment where they're standing. Have they got a piece of cover to go to? How much HP do they have? If they're less than a half, or they've had a shield break already, they want to back up somewhere, depending on what GM it is. And also, the final thing that dictates their AI pattern is how many enemies are alive surrounding them. That is based on the enemies that spawned with them. The reason why that barrier wants to back up to that ramp and all the way in that section is because there's another barrier in there. So the barrier would then, if you spawned in the enemies and you didn't kill the barrier that I've just killed, the barrier would literally run up this hill, up the steps to the other barrier and hold hands. That makes the game harder than what it needs to be. Don't let that happen. It's really straightforward, this. Barriers change when there's two of them. When there's one of them, they're more docile. And especially when you can get your turret going as well, makes them really even easier. We're going to do some heavy ammo because we've got a heavy brick on the floor. It's an ammo finder brick though, bear in mind. Make sure you know your differences between full bricks and ammo finders. I think people don't really notice that. Maybe some people are colourblind, so I'm not going to take the piss out of people, because some people are colourblind, and there is a colourblind setting. But the heavy bricks, the glow brighter, right? Those are the heavy ammo ones, and the bricks that don't glow are just the full bricks. So make sure that you know the difference when you're picking up a brick, because you might have picked up the wrong brick. Because remember, if you've got 10 ammo less than your full, that full brick will be consumed. Which I actually think they should change that, and I've got an idea how they change it, but I'll tell you in a minute. This lift, now you can emote the lift and survive, but I didn't want to do that. Well, I always do this way anyways, and I'm stubborn, I'll do it. I popped a super there because I was a bit late to get my enemies, which was actually kind of bad. I shouldn't have popped super, but I was scared I would get sniped. The enemies aggroed before they should have done because I jumped around stupidly on the lift. That's what happened there. So that one little error caused me to use my super to then not have it for the next section. See how I've lost time now just because of that one little thing? It's a domino effect in GMs. One little thing can happen, next thing you know, this happens, and then you're dead. And then you're like, well, how did you die? Well, it's because of that initial mistake that you made. That's generally what ends up happening. So I generally would like a super on this room, but obviously I've just used it. So instead I'm going to take out some of the enemies from a distance, because it's actually dangerous because you can get ambushed if there's a lot of acolytes alive. But I just killed the initial 4. This will stop that happening, and then you're safe to fight one side. Whatever barrier hasn't hugged the wizard is the one that you want to deal with first. So it's going to be this one. We've got this barrier stuck in place. We're going to get down another turret because we need to confirm kill. As I've just said about AI behaviour for barriers, once they get like half HP, they want to back up and hold hands with their brother champ or the wizard. They want to do that. Obviously Stasis will stop this from happening, and Rapid Fire Ranger, the debuff, will stop that if you get that debuff off. But this is a really important mechanic that you must know. Because if you didn't do that and you didn't melt down that champ there, say you weren't using Stasis and you're on Arc, which is understandable, and you don't melt down the barrier in time, the barrier will then hold hands with the other barrier and the wizard, making the encounter difficult for you to complete solo, because you failed to realise that you need to burst down that first barrier champ to make the second and the wizard easier. So make sure you do it. Whip out your machine gun, whatever it might be. Make sure that your turret is solely focused on the champ. If your turret placement was bad, it might not be. If that's the case, get out the bow and be prepared to maybe have to take down a barrier. Shield. We'll get another turret down. Our goal is to freeze both targets and try to get the wizard killed, because the wizard is more of a threat than the barrier. So I'm just checking to see that the barrier is okay, which he is. He's not bothering me. That's good. And that's that dealt with. That was a nice freeze on the barrier there. This is bad positioning this now. It ends up being bad positioning. I should have just let the barrier retreat, because now what the barrier wants to do is block the exit. Because the exit is the lift. So watch what the barrier wants to do once you've taken down that shield. Well, it's the green shield stuff that was up just before. I'm sure you know what that is, right? So that hive door has been taken down. The barrier is like, right, I'm blocking this zone now. So that's what's happening. So like I said, the 3 rules with barriers: environment, HP, and adds. If all those things the AI of the champ considers on what to do next. But I'll be honest, if you can get your good stasis going and your rapid fire ranger, there's a low chance of the barrier doing dodge rolls and stuff. That's one good thing about this build. I reckon that a Wish Ender run with this build I've just shown you would actually be a fairly quick run, because remember, in combat experiences, Wish Ender kills enemies twice as fast as this bow, because it one-shots enemies and it one-shots shields. So imagine this loadout, but just with Wish Ender, you would probably get it done in about 35 minutes. It'd be less than 40 at the very least. It would knock a good 15-20 minutes off the run, just because you just bang, kill all the acolytes quickly. Like, even when you're going up the elevator shaft, being able to one-shot and add is a speed increase of you getting to safety. Like, look at this. I don't one-shot, add goes to cover, I'm now in danger. I get a freeze as I go in there, which I've saved out on purpose, and then I fusion the other acolyte, because there's a chance of death. There was actually a high chance of death there, because the sniper saw me, but I was quick enough to dodge away. So you're evaluating the risk of death as you're playing, and this is a hard thing to master. It's a skill that you'll master over time. But I will be honest, and I'm going to say this: players who have played D2 since 2017 have mastered mechanics that you can't really master anymore in the game, because the game's in a different place. Right, I mastered double primary heavy. I've done all my learning well, I haven't done all the learning I need to do, but I've done a lot of learning that I needed to do back then. Obviously, I knew the mechanics with Destiny 1, but when Destiny 2 came out, the game changed. Not everything changed about it. There were still some things from D1 in the code that went to D2, but I'd done all the challenges back then. We'd learned the game. The AI movement was all learned. And then when Champs come in 2019, that was another big change. I learned all the champion movements back then. So I've got a wealth of information in my back pocket. I've got it all. So if I need to step up the gameplay another gear, I can do that. But players who are just starting 2020, 2021, Yous are all just like brand new to me, and yous haven't went through the trials and tribulations that veteran players have. That's not a kick or a hit at those people, but it is just really like the truth that players who have played longer have had to overcome a lot more. Right? You run back the Whisper mission with double primary heavy, with no weapons being strong, only sleeper simulant. If you didn't have Whisper of the Worm, then good luck to you. You had to run sleeper, probably a bow and a scout or something. You try and run that mission timed, see how you get on. Try and do 0 hour with double primary heavy, no anarchy available to you. See how you get along. So just because of how the sandbox of the game was, the player had to play harder to get stuff done. That was a byproduct of how the game was, because Bungie wanted to do hardcore PvP, and the only way to do that was with double primary, or they thought, right? But then they then went and affected PvE by doing this, which made people not want to play. The game was too difficult for people. I'll be honest, I think the game was too difficult for people, solo-wise, because there was nobody soloing anything really in 2017. And I know that because I can remember each and everyone's upload, who was where, who was doing what. My memory for this sort of thing is really good because I've been involved with it, within it for such a long time. So I remember what people were doing then, how many people soloed this and that. You can ask me questions on it and I would know instantly. So I knew what people were doing then, and they weren't doing a lot. Everybody solos now. Everybody's soloing. Does that mean that the game's popular? Yes, but it also means it's far easier than what it's ever been. But it's actually more drawn out than it's ever been as well. The game's just drawn out too much, to the point where the activities isn't what's going to beat you. It's the boredom of leveling that's going to beat you. And yes, there's still leveling in the game because you need to level to 20 artifact power every season. So you need to XP level every season still. There's no pinnacle grind, which oddly enough I kind of miss. I don't know why. I can't believe I'm saying that. But you're still going to grind XP every season. So it's a complete lie and fabrication for somebody to say there's no leveling in D2 anymore. Yeah, there is. What the hell have I been doing then in the first 2 weeks of each and every season? Well, actually, 4 weeks of every season. You're farming your bounties to get the highest artifact power possible to showcase all the artifact mods off before any other player. And that's the goal. And that's what these players are doing. But they don't want to tell you that's what they're doing. But it's obvious that's what they're doing. They want to get the best mods week 1. And then they can show it off in gameplay. And then they can get higher views on YouTube than the next guy, or on Twitch or whatever. That's the name of the game, and that's the game that people are playing, but people don't realise that's what's actually going on. But that's what is going on. So people say leveling's gone. No, it hasn't. Leveling every season still. Unless I'm playing a different game to you. Am I playing a different game to you? Obviously not. We are still leveling in the game. I think we do still need leveling in the game, but it needs to be meaningful enough. And I hope that they bring it back after Final Shape in some capacity and maybe reset the clock to level 0 or level 1. That's what I think they need to do. But we'll see what happens. So with the Hashladun boss fight, we used a super to take down the wizards to save ammo. As I said, the Shadebinder super is good on the wizards, so you may as well use it. Rather than spamming valuable heavy ammo and valuable fusion rifle ammo, we're not going to do that. So every time there's a raw or an audio queue, that's a spawn of enemies. This pile of skulls, because that's actually what it is, dead skulls, we're just going to use this position, which I don't even think this is counted as an exploit. It's just somewhere where you can stand on them. I mean, I suppose it is. It's an exploit, but it's not a cheese, because you're not cheesing anything per se, but you are manipulating the enemies to take them out easier. But it's a fantastic little exploit, and I actually found this day 1 Scarlet Keep. it'll be day 3, day 4, because we had to level up then. But I remember soloing it was on a Friday night, and I was like, oh, you can stand at these pile of skulls, and you're standing here, and none of these champs would push you, and I was like, oh, this is great, this. Because back then we didn't know you could exploit on top of the roof, but then they patched that out as well. So they patched that out, the roof exploit, which I love that exploit, but they patched it out, and I was like, alright, we'll just go back to the old one, which is this. It's good because you can stand here and deal with enemies, and it's not too much of a problem. I will say the boss can still kill you, and you can get knocked off map. You can get knocked off map by the Thrall and the Knights with the swords. So you need to pay attention to those, and you need to have your panic button as left. So your panic button, as soon as you see enemies coming and they're getting too close, immediately go left into the sort of hole, right? As far to the wall as you can get, because that will stop the enemies millioning you off the map, and it will mean that the enemies will fall off map. Or you might be... See, I strafe and shoot. So I strafe and shoot, so the enemy generally dies anyways. And it'll stun them if it still went against me. But I will be honest with the Shadebinder at the boss fight, it's fantastic. It really is fantastic, because you can stand behind this cover, and the turret's doing so much for us that it doesn't matter that we can't confront every single enemy, because they're getting froze anyways. And as soon as they walk out from cover, they're going to get melted with either the machine gun or the bow. I wouldn't spam too much fusion rifle if I was you. Like, use it. Don't be dumb and just not use it at all, because then there's no point having a fusion on, is there? Use it effectively, not sparingly, right? Because you do get plenty of ammo, and there are chances to get ammo. Like right now, look at how many special ammos on the floor. There's tons, so I have license to use it, so I'm going to spam it on this wizard. Right? Now, to note, when the boss is shielded, the boss cannot hit you. The boss is just there. So you can actually just freeze this wizard over and over. I'm going to get an exotic primary kill, because that will give us more heavy. Maybe. There's a chance of it. I always do that. If you don't want to finish the enemy, but you do want to kill them, always kill the exotic primary, because there's an increased chance of getting more heavy. And heavy ammo is low for us right now. We're at 121, which is roughly half the ammo capacity that it holds. And I don't see... I think there was some bricks over there. I can't remember now watching it back. But heavy ammo is really important for this, because you want to melt down the Knights and maybe even use someone on Unstoppable. Because remember, you've got 2 Unstoppable champions to deal with. Don't waste heavy on the boss. You're not using Storm Chaser. If you was, then by all means use Storm Chaser, because Storm Chaser, I think like 4 shots with debuff and buff will almost do a 3rd HP. Like, it's that good. So in your fire team runs, make sure that you've got a Storm Chaser to help your team out. 1 or 2 of them, because you will be melting champs. You'll be melting the boss very quickly with that weapon, because Rapid Fire Ranger procs off 1 shot of the aggressive frame burst linears, whereas the precision frame, you do know I do like precision frames, but they're not as good this season, because inherently how an aggressive frame works, it's 3 shots per... It's a burst per shot. Obviously we know this, but it procs Rapid Fire Ranger quicker. So this makes it better in slot this season than what your standard precision frames are. Even things like Bait and Switch Cataclysmic. Fantastic gun, yes, we know that, but this season I would prefer my teammate to use an aggressive frame linear. They're just better right now, just because of the seasonal artifact mods. We're going to get a improved ability regen, because we haven't got any turret. Well, we're coming close, but I need to clear out any enemies around that corner, because I know any leftover survivors will hug the boss now. So like there's 2 acolytes pushed I didn't expect. Hail Barrage saves us. That's what I'm on about with the Hail Barrage. It's so good. Like, sometimes it's better to not spam Hail Barrage and use it as a backup safety perk, so that if a knight pushes you around a corner and you didn't expect it, immediately just hip fire your bow, and that will stop the enemy in its tracks right away. So it's got a lot of utility, the bow, that way. It really is. It really is good. Now we're going to do a bit of hipfire strafe on the boss with the turret to get him immune. Now we'll go back to the zone where the skulls are, and then we'll get a turret out right away. Now this worked out better than what I thought it was gonna, because as I said, your turret has intrinsic unstoppable built within it, technically, because it's freezing the champ. You just hit that champ with any weapon that you have, you will then stun him. So this is holding both unstops in place and all the enemies, which is working out really good. So I'm going to try and get some debuffs going off. I'm also calculating to see, should I use any heavy on these unstops, and I didn't, because I was smart enough to recognise, wait, I want some heavy for final phase, at least 50-60 shots. So we're going to save just that, because we've got these unstoppables stunned. We've got plenty of special on the floor, so I'll prioritise using fusion instead. Even though the machine gun would do a better job right now, that's fine though. We'll use the fusion instead, because there's tons of special over there. We'll leave a backup shot though if I need with the fusion, because we're starting to be low on energy from the turret. But we have got bombers, so when I pop a rift I get my turret anyway, so it's important though I get another turret up as soon as, and keep these unstoppables actually stopped up top mid. It's safer that way, because they do beam you down between them being unfrozen, which you can actually be quick. You can actually be cocky and think, oh, they're not going to kill me now, and then they could beam you down mid shot, mid freeze. I've seen that happen before. Just be careful of that. That's why, as I say, I'm sticking to strafing still. We'll finish with the machine gun, that's fine. 76 shots. Now, this is important. Don't kill the final enemy. Hopefully there's a final enemy up. This keeps the boss shielded. It means the boss won't bother you, and I can pick up any heavy. So there was heavy on the floor. There you go. So I could have used more heavy on those unstops. But that's the conversation you need to have with yourself all the time when you're doing a solo GM that demands a lot of ammo usage. Is how much ammo can I really use? Pay attention to your ammo bricks. I likely missed that brick. I foresee that as a minor error, because if I'd ran that back and noticed that brick, I would have spammed heavy and killed the unstoppables a little quicker and save myself a bit of time. That's how I sort of operate, like when doing the runs, whereas some people say, what, you're an idiot, what are you on about? You're getting your loot. Yeah, I don't care about the GM loot. I operate on a different thing. I'm not bothered too much, unless I am really farming something particular. I've got Osprey. Right, I've got pretty much everything I want from GMs. There's nothing really. I've got Warren's Law. I've got everything I want at the minute. So loot's not my goal. Like, if it was, I wouldn't be playing GMs. Do you know what I mean? So I've sort of got everything. The bosses went to the left-hand side, which this was surprising. There's a knight still alive there. So I'm going to get a turret down and a rift. And I'm just going to spam LMG. My backup plan is to use super if that knight does push me. Which he does. He eventually starts to push me, I think. Or I get my rifts about to run out. So I'll use super at the very end. And that will then kill off the boss. That was a solo GM for Scarlet Keep. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.